Hi, I'm Sarah O'Connell, and welcome to The Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to The Sarah O'Connell Show.
I don't know whether it's a lack of education or awareness or just plain rudeness, but it never ceases to amaze me that some people have completely no filter at all when asking questions to trans people. A classic is always, have you had the op? Suggesting there's only one operation that trans people can have. Firstly, it's none of your business. Secondly, I've had several, so work that one out. Another favourite is, so what do you do in bed then? Which, unless you're in a relationship with a person or auditioning to be in one, is really none of your business. But just for the record, I primarily eat snacks and watch Netflix. The main thing to remember is, would you ask any other person on the entire planet these questions, or be happy answering them yourself? The answer is probably not. With that in mind, I'm now going to ask some of my friends, what should you never ever ask a trans person?
You know, I pretty much answer all questions. The only question I've never answered was, like, the only date I've ever been on with a man was shortly after surgery. And when I came out to him, he asked if he could see it.
Right.
And I was like, what? You know, I basically told him to go F himself. And so don't ask personal questions. If people don't want to answer them, don't ask them. You wouldn't ask a straight person or a cis person to see their genitalia or what it looks like. I always tell people mine looks like Groucho Marx when I put the glasses on. It's hard to tell the difference.
What's between your legs? What was your old name? Or what some people say, what's your real name? Yeah. It's like, God, my real name is Rebecca. Yeah. Hello.
That's how Depot works.
Yeah. So things like that, especially things like, pertaining to physical interventions and stuff. I think that's something that's incredibly personal. And I wouldn't dream of going up to somebody and saying, to a cisgender person saying, well, how big is your penis, or are your boobs real, to a cisgender female? Yeah. You wouldn't. For God's sake, it's nothing to do with me. It's nothing. Just. So that's one of the main things. I mean, other people think that, again, sort of, I suppose, to do with sexuality or the acts of sexual congress, for want of a better euphemism. I think, people say, well, how do you do it? What do you do? What are you into? Are you kinky or whatever? It's like, go away. I'm not going to answer that.
I think a good guide is to think, would I ask this to any other person on Earth? And they probably wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. But they think because they think we're different, when actually we're not. Big reveal there.
We eat food and everything. It's weird.
Exactly. I know, right? Drink water. For once, it's not gin. A bit early in the day for gin. It is strange, isn't it? The sort of things that people ask. But I don't often get asked those questions. Actually, I'm quite lucky.
There's so many things that you shouldn't ask a trans person. I think the rule of thumb is, if you can Google it yourself, don't be asking that person. At the start of my transition, I was so happy to answer anything from people. And at this point in time, like 5 years down the line on my medical transition, I'm a lot less tolerant of people asking silly questions. I'm really intolerant of intolerance, I think. So, definitely... ask with caution, ask with respect, because sometimes people ask questions and you can kind of tell from what they're asking that they're actually being quite negative, or they're kind of making a point about the way you look. So I think people who are asking the question need to really check themselves with what intention they have, first and foremost.
You should never ask a trans person what their real name is.
Right, absolutely.
Their old name, if they have any photographs of them before transition, and anything about their medicalisation. It's none of their business. Would you ask someone, what potty do you go to? No, it's ridiculous. No. You take a trans person and you treat them the same as you would anybody else. You wouldn't speak to your colleague sitting next to you at a desk at work about intimate details about their body or their private life. So why would you do it to a trans person? It's that simple. Respect.
Well, I think anything that you would not ask any other person on the street. Now, I mean, if we have to take context. If you're flirting with somebody, of course, there's a lot of lines that can be crossed. So everything's about context. So if I've just met you and the context is that we're in a business meeting, then of course there's certain lines you're not gonna cross.
Yep.
If we're in a bar, 12 shots of Sambuca later, and you're eyeing me up, then maybe you can ask a few more questions. So, everything's about context. And I think people should just think about that. Like, I had somebody once message me asking me about lower surgery, and I was like, you know what's crazy? I've never been in a relationship and someone's ever asked me that. No one that's ever been interested in me has ever asked me about surgeries. And I find that very interesting, that people who are not interested in me seem so interested in that aspect of my body, but people who are interested in me don't quite ask me those questions. I've never even asked me the question. So I don't know what goes on in people's brains sometimes.
I don't think you should ever ask a trans person anything to do with being transgender unless they're speaking on that subject. Like, I talk to a lot of very, very young children. Even they have the common sense not to ask silly questions like, have you got a willy or a ninny? Like, adults ask me that all the time. People pop up to me in a bar and ask me what's going on. I'm like, why is the content of my genes, with a G or with a J, any importance to you whatsoever?
You should never ever ask a trans person anything about the past. Stay present. This is the person that you're with. This is the person that is here to be adored and supported. If a trans person wants to tell you about the past, that's a huge honor that you have earned, but you don't get to ask for it.
What should you know? Have you got a fanny yet? I think the whole genital thing,
yeah,
I think that's what you should never ask. I mean, I'm very open. I'll talk about absolutely everything.
Yeah.
But you just don't. You just don't go there with people, do you? Really, just in general.
Oh no,
you don't walk up to someone in the street going, "How big's your cock?"
Yeah.
Not
very often, do I? No.
You don't.
It doesn't come up.
Don't do it. There's certain things in life that you just don't do. You don't feel the need to do it. So why would you feel the need to say that to a trans person?
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing. I mean, I'm very open about absolutely everything. Yeah. So for me, it doesn't offend me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say for a huge percentage, it will.
Yeah.
But I'm very open. That's my personality.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got honesty Tourette's.
Yeah.
So I'm really open.
But it's kind of like just educating people.
It is educating people, just you just don't ask about people's private parts because they're called private parts, and they're called private parts for a reason, because they are private. Unless you allow somebody into that zone.
Yeah, unless you've had an open invitation to discuss them.
Exactly.
Be respectful and just think, would I say this to any other person on the planet?
What gives you the right to be able to ask me? I'm only like you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask you that.
No.
So that's the thing I would say don't.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you wouldn't do it to anybody else.
No.
And I'm only like you. I have arms, I have legs, I have a brain, I have a head.
You do.
I'm not an alien.
You're not.
Just because my brain formed opposite to yours. So yeah.
Actually, it didn't.
No, well, no, it didn't actually. No. Good point.
We both have wonderful brains.
Yes, we do. Yes. And
that's
we're both born with girl brains.
Tremendous. We were. Fantastic they are.
I find that a tough question to answer. Right, so there is a long list of things that are, disrespectful to ask a trans person. For instance, asking about what is in people's pants and things like that, because obviously you wouldn't ask a non-trans person what's in their pants, not when they're a stranger, someone you barely know. So I think it's just kind of about treating people with respect, treating, somebody that's trans exactly the same way you'd treat somebody that wasn't trans. You wouldn't jump in straight with personal questions. Saying that though, I would say that I am a very open person, and when people ask me questions, even if they are very personal, I actually, rather than kind of jump at the throats and say, you shouldn't ask that, that's too personal, you know, I'm offended, I would rather either A, answer the question, or just politely explain, you know, actually I'm not comfortable answering that. Usually I do answer it though, because I'm very open, and actually I think it's good for people to actually learn things. But so I think that, you know, I think most of the time people don't ask questions with bad intentions, and I think that's something that's important to say. Like, that's what I believe, you know. People like usually ask because, you know, they're curious or want to learn. So I would never sort of say categorically, don't ask me personally any questions. You know, I'm very open. The only thing I can say is that not everybody is as open as me, you know, so everybody's got different levels of what they find acceptable.
Well, see, this is my thing. I don't know if it's necessarily about not asking or whatever, because for me, I don't get offended by terms because I love who I am. And I have been doing it for at least 5 years now. I've been transitioned. So words don't affect me. Certain things don't affect me. But I would say when it comes to men who are interested in dating a trans woman, if a trans woman discloses to you up front that she is trans, don't say, I don't date men, because that'll get you slapped. Don't say that. Because what you really want to say is that, oh, I've never dated a trans person before, I don't know if this is something I would be interested in. You don't want to say that I don't date men, because then you're referring to a trans person as a man. And that, for me, it doesn't offend me, but what did Nicki Minaj say? She said it irks me. It irks me because I feel like you have to learn how to have a conversation with trans people, because we are people at the end of the day. And so for me, and I would tell trans people, don't let words get you upset. Don't let them anger you. Don't let them affect you, because even if you weren't trans, people are going to say things, and, you know, you just have to learn to ignore it and educate people. And that's what I find most effective is, okay, you didn't mean to say that, so that you're not making someone feel uncomfortable, is to say it like this. So we have to educate, because a lot of people don't understand, and they have no idea about our world. And so we have to sort of educate them a little bit.
What should you never ever ask a trans person? There are loads of things. You shouldn't ask them what they were called before. You shouldn't ask them if it's just a mental problem. You shouldn't ask them if they've had lower surgery. You shouldn't ask them if you can see their surgery. You shouldn't ask them, God, what else is there? How they have sex. You shouldn't ask them, you know, if they're really sure, or if it's just a phase. I mean, there are so many things you shouldn't ask a trans person. And I think, you know, again, if people are genuinely curious and people genuinely want to understand what it is to be trans, then, you know, I think there are great people out there like Buck Angel that will answer any question you possibly throw at him in such a cool, calm, measured way. And I really, really admire that. And I think that comes from, you know, him being so sort of happy with who he is. And you know, I don't think he has, as far as I know, a lot of sort of dysphoria over his body, which isn't the case, I would have thought, for probably a lot of trans people. But just, you know, if you're interested, then make sure that you're talking to someone who's happy to answer those questions. And otherwise, you know, just be respectful as you would with anybody else. And I think that would probably be my advice.
I think it's where it comes from. I think there are some questions that are just gratuitous about genitals or surgeries or your past lives, or some people want to know your previous name or whatever, and some people are happy to disclose that, but not on the first opening. You know, what would you ask somebody you didn't know, and build from there, and just be sensitive. I don't think there is anything, but it's when you ask it and how you ask it, and how well do you know that person. But definitely avoid talking about their previous names, prying too much, and things like about genitals and surgery. I mean, they're just really uncomfortable to be asked that, because even if you feel quite confident talking about it, it's very personal, you know.
Absolutely.
I've had loads of surgery, by the way.
That wraps it up for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and to everybody that contributed their stories. Please be sure to subscribe to the Sarah O'Connell Show, leave a huge thumbs up, leave any comments, ask questions, and be sure to share it, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show coming soon.